What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode without any sort of name for technically the fourth episode, but it's listed as our third because user error on my part. We recorded an entire episode that did not count. So there's that. Pretty excited about that, but I am Scott. I host Partial Artist Podcast, and I'm with Sean, who runs his channel, and we talk about horror movies. And today we're talking about one that half horror movie, half actual dark comedy. We're talking Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Tobe Hooper's vision of what he wanted Texas Chainsaw Massacre to be. And Sean, I'm glad to be joined with you for an actual functioning episode this time.
Yeah.
He'd never seen the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I had. And when I first heard about that movie, it was always talked about how it's one of the worst sequels ever. But I was told if you watch it with the mindset of not expecting the first one, you're going to get something great. And that's what I personally found when I watched it. It was a true dark comedy. Sean, what was your immediate reaction after watching the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Did you get the hype, or were you on board with everybody else?
Well, to give people some context, I have seen most of the films in this series. 2 was one of the only holes I had, along with the beginning and the more recent Leatherface. So I've seen everything else. And
unfortunately, Next Generation.
Unfortunately, most of them. But going into this movie, and maybe it's because what you were saying about it is what I've always heard, which is go into it without sort of expectations of the first film. And I have to say, I found it really interesting because, at least to me, I really enjoyed it as a sequel. To me, obviously in tone and style, it's different, but to me, it felt like the natural evolution of where that story would go. Because my big issue with the other sequels, 3 and 4, and I understand why this happened, is that they are just kind of the first movie again. Like, they're ostensibly remakes. It's a group of kids in a van get in the middle of nowhere and have to contend with a Leatherface and a family. And the family is different every time, played by different actors. And in this film, I don't think it's the same actors. It's not the same actors. I didn't look into it, but I'm pretty sure it's not. But it's the same characters. Like, it feels like the same family that we saw last time. And it made a lot of interesting choices of like, yeah, that is where you would go. I loved the idea that the oldest brother is a successful cook, that he runs like a food truck and is like really good at it and makes money. And he's feeding people. And people would totally eat it because the only reason we don't eat humans is because we morally object to it, not because it wouldn't taste good. We tasted good as any other meat. And I thought that was so clever. And I liked that it was an escalation. We didn't just make that same movie again. We took it a step further. I like that the sets were bigger, that it felt like a bigger movie, that it felt like the stakes were kind of higher and different. Whereas in the first film, it's just, we got to get out. Sally just needs to get out and escape. In this one, our main characters go to them. They go to fight. Like, this is about ending them. And I thought that was a really cool idea. This idea of Leatherface maybe wanting a girlfriend and playing that dynamic was really interesting. I really enjoyed it as a sequel because I was expecting it to be this wildly different thing because that's what it's always been hyped as. And I certainly get that in that it looks different and it's playing into comedy a little more. But to me, it just felt like, no, that's where this would go. Like, I was like, this is absolutely, like, it's nothing I would have thought of. But seeing it, it feels like the natural place to take this story and actually continuing the story instead of just repeating it.
I agree. I think, first off, I think the fact that Tobe Hooper thought the first Texas Chainsaw was a dark comedy and was surprised when no one thought it was funny blew my mind. And so to see his culmination of a film 15 years past that after making other movies in between there to be able to put that out. I think looking back on it with context, it's an amazing sequel and movie. I get that if you watched it at the time and you're thinking all your context is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you walk into a theater and you see that, you'd be like, what in the fuck just happened? Why did that's not what I was. But looking back on it in 2021, you can go, I see what he was doing and what he wanted. And I think that he executed it pretty well. I thought the characters were good. Like you got Chop Top and stuff. You actually have some elements to these characters. They're not just villains. You get to see sides of, not that they're good, but you see sides of who they are, and you kind of get a different vibe. And then there's a weird energy, like where he just keeps like burning his scalp and like stuff like odd things like that are just quirky but unnerving at the same time. That's kind of how that whole movie felt. It was kind of quirky and different, but you were still unnerved the entire time, I felt at least.
Yeah, no, it's effective, and I was definitely interested. I will say I didn't love it. For me, the script is really contrived in a lot of different places, and a couple of these I could just sort of let slide because, it happens. You need movies to be movies, and things need to happen a certain way, and so I can kind of excuse some stuff, but they just kept piling up for me. I mean, even just to start in the opening scene, we have these two, douchebag preppy boys who are calling the radio station, and we need Stretch to get a recording of it because that's essential to the plot. And these guys are being annoying, and then Leatherface shows up to kill them. And there's this weird thing where they're like, well, they have to hang up. We can't hang up. Why can't you hang up?
Yeah.
What is that? Like, just hang up.
Yeah, just cut it.
just cut the line. What are you doing? What do you mean you can't hang up? That doesn't make any sense. And it's just because they need her to get a recording.
Yeah.
She needs to hear it. I will say, man, that stunt is impressive with the car coming this way and the truck in reverse, never swerving, like just perfectly in line with each other the entire time, with the stuntman with a chainsaw, camera's probably on a truck going the same way. Like, I thought that was really impressive.
I think the stunt work is impressive. As far as like practicality to the movie, that drove me insane. I was like, there's no way you drive a truck that fast backwards, straight, dude with a chainsaw. I was like, the Hollywood side of it, I'm like, that's really cool. But then the reality side of my brain kicked in where I was like, nah, that wouldn't
Especially
happen,
like
no
the person that has to be driving that. There's no way he would be able to drive that well.
Yeah, and car and vehicles don't go that fast in reverse. So it's
no,
like
they don't.
You have there's a point where you would
and clearly watching the movie, you can tell they're going kind of slow.
Yeah, that's where that was one of my biggest annoyances with it, was like the reality part of that scene where I was like, dude, they can't go faster than 20. Like, just go 30 and they won't kill you. Like, just keep driving. You're fine. You can outrun them. I promise. They'd have to park, turn around. It's like, no, you can't drive that fast. Also, you'd be out of control everywhere unless you're a professional driver. And I doubt those people are professional drivers.
No. But there was just a lot of stuff like that throughout the movie that just kept taking me out. There's the scene where Stretch goes to Lefty. She's like, hey, I have a recording of these people being murdered. That proves you're right. I can help you. And he says, no, you get out of here. 2 scenes later, he shows up at her work and it's like, hey, can I have that tape now? It's like, well, why did you say no? Why did that happen? I still have no idea.
What'd you think about him dual wielding chainsaws?
That was fun. Dennis Hopper's having the time of his life.
Yeah.
He has never had more fun. He's having a lot of fun. I liked that he's Sally and Franklin's uncle, which I thought was a cool idea and just made sense. Like, someone would want to avenge, well, no one wants to avenge Franklin, but
yeah, no, he can go down with him.
I think the funniest part of the movie for me is when Lefty is in the tunnels and he finds Franklin's skeleton. and he just knows that it's Franklin. And it's like, it's just a skeleton in a wheelchair. And we, the audience, know it's Franklin because they show us the flashlight. And so that's the clue for us to be like, okay, it is Franklin. But he doesn't know that. So he
Yeah.
just goes, oh, Franklin. It's like, you don't know. And to highlight that, and I think this is maybe an intentional joke, Stretch, they literally cut from Lefty with Franklin's body to Stretch walking by a skeleton in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
To me, I just thought I don't know if that was an intentional joke, but it made me laugh.
Yeah. There's a lot of good parts to that movie that are really subtle. I really did like the element where they tried to make Leatherface want like a girlfriend, like have emotions. You're like, you would still want emotions, even if you're a crazy person who wields a chainsaw and eats people. Like, you'd still like want a girlfriend. And
that does, for me, bring up another complaint, and it's just another contrivance where we have to get him to like feel those things. But for me, it's like, one, why this girl?
That's true.
Like, Leatherface has killed a lot of girls, and like, what is it about this specific one? And then the contrivance to get it to start is that there's a bathtub filled with ice and soda, and she's on the edge of it with her legs just spread open. And Leatherface, instead of chainsawing her, is chainsawing the ice and the pop, which gets her legs wet, which is what gets him excited. It's just like, that's a weird kind of scene. And I think it's because they're looking at it as a dark comedy that they're kind of just letting it be kind of weird and a little contrived just to sort of have fun with it.
Yeah.
But I did once you get to it, and once you get past that scene, I did really like it. I think probably the creepiest scene in the movie is when he puts a leather face on her.
Oh yeah.
And like makes her like dance with him. That's a great scene.
Yeah. It really does bring in the fear element of if you were at the mercy of someone else and like you can't do anything. So if they want to put another person's face on your face and dance with you, you have no choice. Like, you're stuck there.
It's
like
that or you get a chainsaw to the face.
It's like, that's so and then her boss or whatever, they show him when he's dying, and they show kind of, I guess, the aftermath of slowly dying without it.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be horrible too, because you wouldn't just die immediately if someone just cut your face off. Like, you'd still be alive for a bit before you actually just died.
You probably wouldn't be able to talk or like move, but
no, you'd be in such shock.
You'd feel that.
Yeah.
He has a whole dialogue sequence.
Yeah, he has a whole scene. It had a lot of good elements, and I get people's reactions to not liking it, but I get if you watch it with a different mindset, you're like, okay, this is kind of a cool idea they went with, especially like you brought up, compared to everything that comes after it. You're like, it's not bad.
Well, people's reactions to it are why we got what we got after it. Because after this, there's a backlash to this movie. I assume, like, I can tell just looking at it, like, yeah, this is a sequel that's really good, but people would have went no and not liked it. And so then they just went to, okay, we're just going to do the first movie just over and over and over again, but ineptly.
Where do you rank it? I rank it as my, of all the Texas Chainsaws, I would say it's 3 or 4, third or fourth. I got the original as number 1. I got the Jessica Biel as number 2. And I would put the sequel, the Texas Chainsaw, either in my number 3, but I can't remember how good the beginning is. So I don't know if I want that as 3 or 4. I feel like I'd have to rewatch that one. All the others I did not enjoy, but I think I'd put it at 3 or 4.
It's funny because I'm not the biggest fan of this series. So like, it ranks pretty high.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. I really like the Jessica Biel remake. So that's probably number 1 because I'm not a big fan of the original. So I don't know, 2 or 3.
Yeah, that doesn't for someone so iconic that everyone knows, when you think about the body of work that there is, not much of its quality.
No, it's a shame. There's a lot of just like, oh, that's embarrassing.
Because when you think about like the big three or big four of horror. You're gonna have like Freddy, Jason, Michael, and it's usually Leatherface, or it could be
Yeah.
Chucky or these things. But there is always in the talk, and when you actually sit down and think about what he has, that's not to say Nightmare on Elm Street series doesn't go bananas or
Sure.
Friday the 13th doesn't, but he's kind of only got a handful of things that hold up.
Like there's 3 movies that work. The original, the 2003 remake, which even then some people don't like that one.
Yeah.
So really then only really one, because everything else is divisive where some people like it and some people don't, or it's one of the worst things you've ever seen in your life.
And it's not even like they're bad enough or iconic enough that they have enough clout that people will rank all the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and they'll all be different, and people enjoy judging how bad they are. They're like, no, I have number 2 is here. No, I got number 2 here. Whereas Texas Chainsaw, people just don't care enough to have an opinion. It's like, look, there's 1, there's 2, there's the remake. That's it.
And some of that's just how bad a lot of it is. And how uninterestingly bad a lot of it is. Whereas at least like with Elm Street or Halloween or Friday the 13th or whatever, I don't know. There's something about each of those films where even if they're bad, they have something.
Yeah.
Like there's something you can grab onto to be like, oh, that's not bad. I can't.
Yeah. If you talk to a horror dude, unless they're a super big chainsaw guy, like Texas Chainsaw guy, if you ask a regular horror dude, like, what's your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street? They could tell you, or what's your least favorite? They could give you an answer. They'd be like, I hate 4 or 5 or the remake or whatever. With Texas Chainsaw, it's kind of like the worst is Next Generation, bar none. I've never met a soul on this earth who likes that movie.
Nope.
And the best, or there's the original. Everyone likes the original, speaking broadly.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of from there, it's hit or miss. You might get some people who like this one or some people who like that one, but you can go online and find a group of people who love Freddy's Dead. They're like, that's my shit. That's the best Freddy. You never see someone online be like, Texas Chainsaw 3. Like, I wonder where it fell off so hard. Like, I guess the counter reaction to 2, but even then.
That's my big, I mean, I didn't look into it at all, but that's the only thing I could think of. Like, that's why this is the way it is, because it's not as extreme, but we're kind of seeing that with Star Wars right now is, I know you don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure people listening do. I won't understand the references you're making or what you're.
Well, they brought it back with The Force Awakens in 2015, and they did a sequel to that called The Last Jedi. And that film, like Texas Chainsaw 2, took a lot of chances and sort of played with it and really did something, I think, really interesting. But there was a backlash to it where there's a group of Star Wars fans that just went, no, this is not Star Wars. And so everything Star Wars since then has just been nostalgia porn and just, hey, remember what was great about the older movies? We're doing that. And no one really coming at it in a way of taking chances or telling a story. It's just, hey, remember what you liked about that thing. And I feel like that's kind of where we got with Texas Chainsaw, is people trying to sort of figure out what made the first movie worked and somehow recreate it. But you can't. Like, that movie is what it is. And so you just kind of need to go your own way with it. Which I say, but then I say that, and then Texas Chainsaw 4, the Next Generation's own way with it was, what if they were part of the Illuminati? So maybe not your entirely own way with it, but
yeah, it's a very, once you sit back and think about it, and you think about Leatherface as always this icon, he doesn't offer much outside of 1 or 2 movies.
Yeah,
really.
Like, people will marathon. I will marathon the Elm Street series or Friday the 13th or Halloween. I will not marathon Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, it's just, there's only so much you can do with it if you want to keep it in the original vein of the movie. That There's it's a crazy family who runs a slaughterhouse. And this dude kills
Yeah.
people with a chainsaw. It's like you
And
can't.
honestly, I'm pretty happy with this movie with part two as the end of it.
Yeah, if it would have
Like for
stopped
me,
there.
this is an ending. I like this. I mean, except for the cheesy, like the main girl, like waving the chainsaw around the final shot. That was too much. That was
Yeah,
the big moment where I was like, I object.
I
This
I
is
am
too
over
far.
this.
But then, like, I like that the dad just sort of blows them all up. Like him and Leatherface and the cop, the lieutenant, just blow up, and then she gets to defeat the the middle brother, whose name I totally know.
Yeah, yeah. It's so they've made so many attempts at it, and it must be making money because they keep doing it. But
Well, not so much because the last
no,
one went direct to video. Like
that's
they
true.
didn't even get a theatrical release. It's just a
The
title, and you own it, so you do something with it, so you don't lose the rights. That's what happened to Hellraiser.
I've never sat through any more than the original, but I've heard the second one's pretty good.
People really like two. And three is bad, but a fun bad. But it didn't make its money back. So every sequel since then was a direct to video trash. Just so the Weinsteins didn't lose the rights.
Are they all directed and done by Clive? Like
No,
they gave
no,
up
he's
after.
gone. He's after two. He's gone.
Okay, I've never known. I didn't know because he seems like he's too highbrow to do all
Yeah,
of
no.
those.
Mm-mm. I'm sure he gets a check because it's his creations, but no, not involved.
Man, well, I'm glad you got to sit and watch the second Texas Chainsaw because I had avoided it for years, and then I decided one day to just try it. It's like it's not fair to hate this movie without giving it a shot. And I watched it, and I was like, oh damn, this is one of the best ones.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it. I don't know if it's a movie I'll ever like go back to or
No.
watch again, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a solid sequel, certainly one of the better horror sequels, but one of the better slasher sequels I've seen, and there was a lot I liked about it. For me, the script was just a little too weak in certain parts, and certain things were contrived, and character motivations were a little weak for me. But it's an enjoyable movie. I loved the sets. I loved just that I don't know if they had a name for it, but where they live, their like lair, that just huge, massive set, I thought was so cool.
That was a really cool set idea to make. It just seemed never ending.
Yeah.
Like no matter where she went, it was a different part of the cave. You're like,
And then
oh
when
my
she
god.
gets out, there's just like a mountain and there's like a room there. And oh, that was all so cool.
Yeah, the set was cool. The idea was cool. All around, like you said, I'm never going to go to my way to watch it again. If it's on, I'll watch it, but
Yeah.
it's not one I'm just going to have a hankering to be like, let me watch Texas Chainsaw 2. But
There are worse double features than just watching the first two.
oh, for sure.
If you needed like a double feature night.
Yeah, for sure. That 1 and 2 is a lot better than plenty of double features. But you got anything cool upcoming? People can check you out on YouTube. Any good videos? Anything planned that people should be looking out for?
So my channel is Sean Blumenshine, where I cover a lot of rock music and horror films. I'm not sure when this podcast is going up. Right now, I'm working on a Motley Crue video and maybe doing videos on more obscure music, which I think would be cool, but also probably won't get views because people will be like, I don't know what that is.
What's an
I've
example of like obscure? Like I'm curious. Like what
well,
you're.
the one, because I've got one shot and just not edited, is Marion Raven,
I
an
don't know who it
album
is.
she did. Yeah, see,
I'm
um,
be interested to hear though.
but got those. Probably gonna look at the two Union records, which for Kiss fans is Bruce Kulick's band post Kiss when the reunion tour happened. Probably some kind of horror history series pretty soon. That's just probably going to be another month or two as I'm still working on it. And the other big video I'm planning is a ranking of every Kiss and Kiss related album. So not just the basic 20 studio albums, those plus solo albums and any kind of couple of other miscellaneous stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm going through right now. Is I always see people do the studio albums. I want to do all of the albums plus every Ace album, Peter album.
Yeah.
Have fun listening to Gene Simmons' 2008 Asshole album. Enjoy that, because I sat
2004.
2004. Oh God, the fact you know that is very impressive to me. That oh my God, have you listened to that all the way through?
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a one-timer. That is a one-timer and a one-timer only.
That and Peter's One for All are the two things that I get requested.
Is that the one with? Is that
review.
The one with the Earth on it? It's got like the.
Yes.
Okay, because I know there's one Out of Control where it's just his face.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's
no. Out of Control is like an exploding television or something. It's like a comic.
What's the one with just his face where he's like sideways?
That's Let Me Rock You.
Yeah, Let Me Rock You. Yeah.
Which, funny, was never released in the US until like the mid 90s.
Why would they wait that long? Why would they
released it? They released it in like Europe and Japan in like 82. And then just like, we're not putting this out in the US.
I wonder what about him. He's like in 1994. He's like, people need to hear it.
People need to hear this. No, they didn't. Spoilers for my video. No, they didn't.
Oh, man. I mean, I listened to one of his solo albums and I didn't think it was too bad. I was like, it's all right. Comparatively, it's not bad.
You're like, after Asshole, everything they do is great.
Asshole's the worst album I ever heard in my life. I was like, I cannot believe he made this. Like some of the words that's like some of the lyrics he thought of, I've always heard where they were like, he's like, I write a song a day. And Ace Frehley's like, I don't write a song a day. I just write when I feel like writing. When I heard that album, I was like, that's why you don't write a song a day, because that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
What's sad, he didn't write everything on there. There's like cover songs and like songs written by other people that he just stole. I mean, not stole, but like he used and recorded. So he didn't even write everything on there.
It is such a
and it sounds awful.
I already know when you rank all these albums, that has to be the worst one. I mean, if you find one that's worse than
it's not.
Which one's worse than that?
One for All. Again, spoilers for my video, but One for All is just awful.
Wow. I'm going to go check it out.
Right now, because I haven't listened to everything yet. There's still a couple things I need to listen to, but right now, that for me is the lowest.
That's very...
Because I also really do not like Vinnie Vincent. So his two albums are probably going to be pretty low too.
I've never listened to him separately, like on his own before.
You have kind of sort of not really heard one of his songs, because one of his songs plays during Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
What song?
It's called Love Kills. It's barely audible in the background of one of the diner scenes.
Wow.
But he did a whole music video. You can go on YouTube and see a music video of him playing that song, and he like dresses up as Freddy.
Okay. That's
plays the guitar with the glove.
Oh God Almighty. You ever listen?
That's actually probably one of his better songs.
That's unfortunate for him. The fact that I've never heard it, and that's one of his better ones, and he played it in a Freddy Krueger glove. Have you ever listened to, just because I find it so ridiculous, someone playing a guitar with a Freddy Krueger glove? Have you ever listened to the band Jackal, the Lumberjack song?
No.
When we get off of this, you need to look up the Lumberjack song, because they're fitting with Texas Chainsaw is a chainsaw solo in that song. Hand to God, they play a chainsaw like an instrument. It's the most ridiculous song you've ever heard. And people at the time when it came out were like, yeah. Crazy that people would get that involved about a chainsaw solo. But
I might review the Freddy Krueger album at some point. Have you heard that?
I know he did a song with Fat Boys or whatever, but
no, that's not on there. That's a different thing.
What the fuck, man?
There's an entire album where they just put together a band that just did some cheesy covers and some cheesy originals, and then they got Robert England to come in his Freddie voice and to sing on them, and it's the worst thing I've ever heard.
I didn't know that existed. I didn't need to know that existed, but unfortunately now I know it exists and I got to find it.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, you gave me a lot to work on. That's been the episode. A lot of firsts here. You got to watch Chainsaw for the first time. I got to find out that Freddy Krueger made an album. So a lot of good firsts going on this episode. But hope y'all enjoyed it. Let us know what y'all think of the second Texas Chainsaw, where it ranks in your list. If you actually like any of the other ones, especially if you like Next Generation, we got to get you on the show because I got some
people
questions.
Surely like it ironically.
I know. I need
they
someone,
enjoy it as a bad movie.
No,
right?
I need to find someone who likes it seriously, like someone who's like, "That's a good movie. Here's why." Like, I need to. If we can find that guy, if you're out there, you're on the show. We're
the Illuminati
you.
twist. Genius.
Best piece of writing since Hitchcock. I swear to God. Like, I want to meet that guy. He loves Matthew McConaughey's bionic legs. Like that's what he's got to be out there, and if he is, he'll find this episode. But that's the show, guys. Thank you all for supporting us, and let us know what we should talk about next.